Powerful tsunamis have struck parts of Russia's far east and northern Japan after a massive magnitude 8.8 earthquake rocked the Pacific region. And authorities in Russia's far eastern Sakhalin region have declared a state of emergency in the northern Kuril Islands, where the tsunami waves have damaged buildings already and are causing intense flooding. Hawaii cleared the beach and prompted tsunami warnings, and evacuations stretching across the Pacific Ocean are also being carried out.
Everyone evacuate the beach. All lifeguards will be leaving at 5 p.m. Even the police will be evacuated.
I would imagine that HPD right now is out there trying to move traffic along to the best of their ability. I know we've gotten some calls that it is horrible and people are in gridlock, and that's, all I could ask is for people to keep their calm, and we'll try to move things along as best we can.
And Russia's remote far east, the port town of Severokurilsk, was flooded after a tsunami swept through. Here is the moment when tsunami crashed over coastlines in Russia's far eastern region. Authorities say the town's roughly 2,000 residents were evacuated in good time. And officials confirm several people were injured during the quake, but none have been injured seriously. The quake is now the strongest to have hit Russia's Kamchatka region since 1952. Russia's regional governor asked for calm among the citizens.
Today's earthquake was a challenge for all of us. It's the strongest quake in decades of tremors. According to preliminary estimates by specialists and seismologists, the magnitude of the earthquake was 7.7 to 7.9, and there is a tsunami threat warning. That's why I am again repeating my plea to stay away from coastlines. Specialists have already begun a thorough inspection of sites and socially significant facilities for possible quake damage. This includes schools, hospitals, and kindergartens.
A kindergarten was damaged in Russia's far east. Kamchatka Minister of Emergency informed of the situation through social media.
At kindergarten number 15, there was a collapse of the building facade. But thank God no one was injured. There were no children in the building, but there is damage.
And across the Sea of Okhotsk, Japan's northern coast has also been impacted. Evacuation orders were issued from Hokkaido down to the eastern shores of Honshu after the initial tsunami wave reached Japan. The Japan Meteorological Agency later upgraded its tsunami warning, forecasting dangerous waves of up to 3 meters, with more waves expected to strike repeatedly.
For citizens in the areas included in the tsunami warning, please evacuate to a safe place immediately, such as designated evacuation buildings and hills. We are receiving reports and currently monitoring for any details of damage or casualties.
Japan has suspended several coastal train services around Chiba, Yokohama and the Izu Peninsula. At the Fukushima nuclear plant, workers were evacuated as a precaution.
Attention please. Attention please. Tsunami alert is issued now. The estimated time of arrival of the tsunami is around 11 a.m. It is safer to stay inside the hotel than outside. Please do not run out of the building and stay in the room. If on the basement or the first floor, please evacuate to the third or fourth floor using nearest status.
And in the Philippines, authorities are urging residents on the eastern seaboard to stay inland. Warning waves may arrive between 1:20 and 2:40 p.m. local time. Now, in the US, alerts were sent to mobile phones from Alaska to California, where tsunami advisories remain in effect. Tsunami warning centers now say waves of over 3 meters are possible along some parts of Russia, the northwestern Hawaiian Islands and Ecuador. Coastal areas in Chile, French Polynesia, Guam, Costa Rica and Hawaii are all bracing for anywhere between 1 meter to 3 meter waves, while regions from Mexico and Australia to Taiwan and New Zealand may see surges of up to 1 meter.
If you've ever shared a ChatGPT conversation using the app's share feature, you may have unknowingly made it searchable on Google. The internet is abuzz with reports of thousands of publicly shared ChatGPT conversations showing up in the search after being indexed by search engines like Google and Bing. Alarming details showing that some of these chats contain personal, sensitive, or even confidential information. When the users click ChatGPT's share button, it basically generates a public link hosted by OpenAI. Anyone with that link can access the conversation. And if the link is posted on a website, social media, or even shared by someone else, it can be picked up by Google's crawlers. Naturally, a large number of these chats contain personal content ranging from conversations about mental health and trauma to personal relationships, workplace issues and others. And some even include identifiable information like names, email addresses, locations, photos, voice messages, making them a serious privacy risk. The shared link creates a static, read-only version of the chat hosted on OpenAI's domain, which remains online unless a user specifically deletes that link from their shared links dashboard. Even if a user later deletes the chat or removes the shared link, it may still appear in Google search results through the pages until Google updates its index. OpenAI clarifies that names are not automatically attached to conversations, but users who manually include personal information could be exposing far more than intent. US President Donald Trump's ballroom dream is set to become reality. In the latest addition to the US presidential complex, the White House has announced that construction of a new state ballroom will start in September. The ballroom is expected to be completed before the president's term ends in early 2029. It marks the latest change to what is known as the People's House since President Trump returned to office in January. Pledging that no government dollars will be used for the new ballroom, Trump said that he and other private donors will cover the full cost of construction, which is estimated at $200 million.
Yeah,
private donations?
it's a private thing. Yeah, I'll do it, and we'll probably have some donors or whatever, but it's about $200 million. So we've been planning it for a long time. They've wanted a ballroom at the White House for more than 150 years, but there's never been a president that was good at ballrooms. I'm really good. In fact, I looked at one that we just built in Turnberry in Scotland, and it's incredible. We're good at building. I'm good at building things, and we'll get it built quickly and on time. It'll be beautiful, top of the line.
The construction of the White House State Ballroom will also be the first structural change to the executive mansion since the addition of the Truman balcony several decades ago. President Trump has for months now promised to build a ballroom, saying the White House lacks adequate space to host large events. He also expressed his dislike for the idea of hosting heads of state and other dignitaries in the tents on the South Lawn.
Now, what if humans could switch off hunger, sleep through winter, or travel to Mars in stasis like they do in science fiction? A new genetic discovery suggests that this isn't just a fantasy. It may be buried deep within our DNA. Take a look.
Animals that hibernate are incredibly resilient. They can spend months without food or water. When the climate changes in some parts of the world, the conditions become extreme. They go into a snooze mode. The body temperature drops dramatically, metabolism and brain activity slows to a crawl. But the magic happens. When they emerge from hibernation, they slowly recover. Regain their body mass and strength. The weeks of hibernation also helps them recover from dangerous health changes, similar to those seen in type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, and stroke. Researchers have now mapped the genetic instructions that enable animals like bears, ground squirrels, and mice to hibernate. Now a new study says that humans share shockingly similar hibernation switches, clusters of genetic controls that, in animals, permit bodies to slow metabolism, withstand famine, and heal rapidly. Evolution buried this circuitry in our anatomy, but it was never truly lost. Now, with the right trigger, scientists believe it could be flicked on once more. Imagine a future where trauma patients are cooled and placed into metabolic suspension to survive blood loss. The implications are enormous. Obesity and diabetes could be tackled by triggering a natural slowdown in the body's energy use. That's not all. Interstellar astronauts could sleep for years, surviving harsh journeys by mimicking the deep slumber of polar bears. This isn't science fiction, it's cellular fact.
So we're seeing lots of observations kind of across the Northeast with high numbers of fireflies. We think for fireflies this year, because it was such a moist, wet spring with lots of rain in the Northeast, that seems to have made a really good juvenile habitat where the babies are kind of developing and growing. When you see a year like this year where there's a really high number of fireflies, it might give you kind of like a sense of false hope, right? That maybe the populations are quite big and that the species in our area are doing quite well. But we think that that's not the case. The causes of firefly decline, we think, are light pollution primarily, because when it's very bright, they have a hard time seeing each other's species-specific signal. They can't communicate if they don't have the dark sky. But then there's also lots of insecticide use. And that means that next summer, if there happens to be a dry spring, we're going to be back to low numbers. So we still need to do some work ourselves to kind of change our behavior to really make sure that large populations can continue to stay large.
It's a scary thought. The potential of losing Medicaid, the potential of it being cut down or cut entirely. It feels like there is a hidden price tag on my life and my life's worth.
Slater is among millions of Americans who may be at risk of losing their Medicaid coverage. The Congressional Budget Office has estimated that 10 million more people will be uninsured in 2034 because of the tax bill signed by President Trump this summer. Researchers recently looked to past studies to predict what this will mean for patients. Their findings were presented at a Senate committee hearing, and updated numbers were provided to the Associated Press.
As a consequence of this bill, 2.5 million would go without their personal doctor. 1.7 million would not get needed medications. 1 million wouldn't have their blood cholesterol checked, and that about 500,000 women would not get needed mammograms. 1.6 million Americans would accrue medical debt. Finally, most disturbing of all, we find that more than 20,000 Americans would die as a result of this bill.
I was originally diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia and small lymphocytic lymphoma when I was 26 years old in 2018. And most recently, it came back in November of 2024. I also am a diabetic. If I didn't have health insurance, my medication alone is $15,800 and something a month. That doesn't include going to a doctor, getting blood work.
Slater has already seen the impacts of what being uninsured or skipping her medication could mean. In May, she went 4 days without her cancer medication and ended up in the hospital. And going without health insurance last year caused her to ignore early signs that her cancer had come back.
If I had been covered when I first started feeling the symptoms, I would have gone to the doctor. I'd be in a completely different space.
We are putting patients in a terrible position. They're left with a choice between getting care they can't afford and potentially accruing devastating medical debt, which can even lead to bankruptcy, or asking them to go without needed care. There's really no questioning the basic reality that you can't take healthcare away from 10 million people without causing many preventable deaths.
I'm only one example of the type of person that gets Medicaid. Once we start to define who gets Medicaid, isn't that just a really nice way of rephrasing who deserves it? And once we get to that, who does deserve Medicaid? Who deserves health care?
De nos submeter aos interesses do imperialismo, com o objetivo de desagregar a economia brasileira. Somente o povo pode derrotar esse parasita. Grande abraço a todos. Viva o povo brasileiro! Eu levo essa festa solidária ao Alexandre de Moraes por mostrar coragem nessa guerra contra aqueles que querem fazer. Os traidores da pátria, os traidores do PL, os traidores da extrema-direita.
India has deployed 3 naval warships to the Philippines, marking a significant show of support for Manila as tensions with Beijing continue in the South China Sea. The Indian Navy vessels, INS Mysore, a guided missile destroyer, an anti-submarine warfare corvette, INS Shakti, a fleet tanker, are currently docked in Manila. They will participate in a joint patrol with the Philippine Navy from August 4 to 8, including in areas contested by China and the Philippines. Notably, this joint maritime drill coincides with the Philippine President's official visit to India, where he is scheduled to meet Prime Minister Modi, the President and other leaders, underscoring the strengthening defense ties between the two sides. Recently, the INS Mysore has been armed with the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile, which has a range of up to 800 kilometers, enhancing India's growing strategic capabilities. Analysts see this coordinated patrol as part of India's ongoing operational deployment across Southeast Asia, signaling a united front with Manila amid the rising South China Sea tensions. At the Manila port arrival ceremony, Rear Admiral Sushil Menon of the Indian Navy's Eastern Fleet thanked the Philippine government for its welcome and showcased the Navy's surveillance aircraft, which can distinguish the military from civilian ships, emphasizing their commitment to regional security and cooperation. In fact, during their drill, Indian and Philippine naval personnel will be taking part in joint professional exchanges aimed at strengthening interoperability and fostering closer ties between the two navies.
We are being deployed nuclear submarines.
Oh yeah, well we had to do that. We just have to be careful. And a threat was made and we didn't think it was appropriate, so I have to be very careful. So I do that on the basis of safety for our people. A threat was made by a former president of Russia, and we're going to protect our people.
What did Medvedev say to you that made you really mad?
Well, you just have to read what he said. He was talking about nuclear. When you talk about nuclear, we have to be prepared, and we're totally prepared.